Hey everybody, welcome UD7 once again on Tuesday. Hey Mitchell, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, but no, I'm not doing good. I am doing good. No, it's flipping randomly. I can't seem to control it. I guess I go well with what we're doing today. We've randomly selected 3 games from our list of 10, and we've ended up with. I guess we can spoil it because the players know at this point, right? Do they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody
So,
knows.
all right.
It's
No
going
secret that we're playing VVV out there somewhere, and Mega Man 1 through 6.
and we're going to stream Mollyman, Max Fred, Sablier, and Molgamis. So let's take a look. VVV on Mollyman's card at 21 minutes, on Molgamis' card at 25 minutes. And there somewhere is in light blue at 200 points for Molgamis. Wow, sub 8 is already very good. Those 2 games we haven't seen much, so it's kind of the wild card. I'm not sure how the players are going to perform. We know way better Mega Man because we've seen the game a lot in the first few tournaments, and it's been featured in the weekly achievements. So the players have played, are experienced with the category, and still it's fairly difficult to play and to beat the category without dying, and trying to go remotely fast with the changing gameplay all around is actually very challenging.
Yeah, the Deathless Mega Man achievement, I think, if anyone out there was like me, it prompted me to sit down and have to really learn the game, because otherwise there are so many rooms in that game that can kill you. So we might see some people who are a lot better than their PB just because they put in time learning the games for that achievement. Malaman, I think, had a pretty good Mega Man time before that achievement, and also, his avatar was Iceman, actually. It might still be actually on Twitter, but definitely very experienced at Mega Man, has a very good out there somewhere, just a little bit shy of that 200-point mark, and BBV also pretty good. It's one of their worst games, relative to all the other games, but Malaman recently hit 2,000 points, so that means you're pretty darn good at all the games, so even your worst one ends up being pretty good.
Yeah, you have to have a very, very good average. Max Fred has a very good average time on VVV out there somewhere, and Mega Man close to 180 points on every game, 158 on VVV. It's a very difficult game to master if you don't sit and learn all the strats, all the rooms, and how to change them, how to remember what's upcoming when you're playing so fast. You move very, very fast in VVV, and you flip the gravity very quickly as well, so it can be difficult to adapt if you don't learn specifically the game. Something that Sablier obviously has done. If you pass the sub 20 bar on VVV, it means that, to me, I feel like it means the player has started learning deeply the game.
Yeah, you can flip your way through and die a whole lot and come up with something under 25 minutes probably. I got under like a 29-minute run just trying to die less than 100 times. So barely dying less than 100 times can get you around that period. But you have to sit down and learn, like, oh, actually there are faster ways to make all these cycles in these rooms, rather than just kind of waiting and doing the thing where your head is bobbing up and down. You're now, right? Like, none of that. You know exactly when to go on these cycles. That's when you start to get underneath that 20-minute time. Mulliman and everyone else is just a little bit over. So Sablier has, I think, probably the biggest advantage of the bunch, mostly due to VVVVV. It's going to be the first game, and you guys can take a look if you somehow haven't seen or heard of this game yet.
I feel like it's one of the classic of the indie games, the new wave of 2D games, and made by very few people, made as awesome as possible, and looking like the Commodore 64, which is so old that very few of the audience actually has played any Commodore game. But it's a good throwback. And it's very difficult to go past in this game. It's, to me, I think it is the hardest of the entire UD7, actually.
I think if you're talking about like the hardest to get your points, like get up to 200 points, where the points really um, make the biggest impact on your overall Ultimate Decathlon score. I think you're right. I think it is very, very difficult to go from 150 points to 200 points in VVV in a way that it just isn't for the other games. If you're talking about reaching like the absolute highest skill ceiling, then there's like some monstrous games in here in Mega Man and Trackmania, right? But
Yeah.
For people who are looking to do well in this competition, I think you're right. So VV, I think, is going to be an important game going forward for people who are looking to aim to compete in the full decathlons. And it's going to be even somewhat more important here today because it's one of only 3 games. So if you don't do so good here, you're really not going to have much time to make up that difference.
Yes, it is. It's been picked at random, and we have the luck to have 4 players that are very skilled at the game. The lowest PB is Mulgamis at a 25.05. Mulgamis is a player we've seen quite a bit on the streams. Very, very active player during UD7, and they've been making good progress. So I can't wait. I do expect, like always, to see a bunch of PBs because obviously we're not having on this tournament only 4 players. A whole lot of UD players are actually playing at the same time. So get your, bet ready on who's going to win because Mollyman and Sabli are very well placed and have a very good shot at it. But the gold star is really, really tough to get.
I will never get a gold star. All the tournaments, I'm always up here in the booth. I'll collect as many of these achievement stars and things as I can, but that's it. So I don't know how much the players value these stars on their player cards, but for someone like me who values them quite a bit, certainly am cheering for all the players here. Serious business for me.
Very important to have as a good looking card as possible. But the race is going to start, so the players are going to select a new save file, and here we go. They should be starting all at the same time, I hope. It feels like Max Fred is maybe dropping frames, but on the left side of the screen, everybody's gone already. So the ship has encountered a horrible physical accident, and we have to make our way through the entire open world, kinda, to find our 5 friends that are lost. And the only way to make it so is to flip your way through a lot of death traps. Every single room has usually multiple checkpoints and a way to die, and you're going to have to remember exactly how to progress. Mollyman is taking a safety checkpoint here, showing how much he respects the fact that he might die in the upcoming rooms.
Yeah, that was. I can remember if you get a checkpoint in this room. I guess you don't. You need one of the either the sea or a portal. Wow, what? He was not dead there. He was like wedged in between the platform and the wall. But yeah, to back up a little bit, the basic mechanic here is you control gravity. You flip upside down or right side up, and that's kind of it. There's no jump button. You've got left, right, and flip, and so you have to use your very limited set of controls to navigate increasingly perilous environments. Mollyman dipping a little bit too early here. You can see that there's multiple screen transitions. It only shows one screen at a time with no scrolling, so it can be kind of mean sometimes when there's suddenly some spikes waiting for you on the next screen, and I guess it speaks to just some unfamiliarity with the game on Mollyman's part.
Well, Sablier is first to leave to take the teleporter and get to that long cutscene. You have to mash your way through it as fast as possible because the in-game time is still ticking. It's never stopping, even if you wanted to save time. And here we go. Onward, Sablier is going to make their way through the open world. So the world has 4 distinct levels that you have to find, and they're scattered around, and the overall world map can be confusing. It warps around and has a huge gigantic tower that you cannot pass through in the middle. So it's something you have to learn exactly how to navigate and make your way immediately and as fast as possible to the levels. But Sablier obviously know exactly what they're doing. Taking a little shortcut here. On their way, they're finding a trinket. Trinkets are collectible, totally optional, but we might see an achievement on collecting those at some point in the UD, but they don't matter. The only reason Sablier picked one up is because it's faster, obviously.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a shortcut there, and so even if you have to wait for the text that pops up, it does end up being faster. A couple different little sequence breaks you can do, sort of. Sablier actually going for that one, and it is incredibly difficult. I think accidentally hit the button to switch, actually, and ended up in some spikes, but it's possible to do 2 very, very precise flips to get through those platforms on a different cycle and also end up on the bottom part of the level rather than the top part. So didn't get it, but knew immediately that the best thing to do was to switch to the regular strat afterwards, because the platforms would just be better lined up for it. So it is obviously incredibly comfortable playing this game, and is going to serve them well. We do have a bit of discrepancy in terms of who is ahead. Molgames has gone ahead to one of the other areas rather than the spaceship area, so it will be a little hard to keep track, but eventually they will sync back up.
Sablier making their way through the green coins room, and has to remember to stop here because you passed this room for the second time here, and the tiny platform you have to make disappear, and it's one of those room that if you don't remember exactly what's upcoming, you're going to die. So having your head on the right place and moving as fast as possible like it is going to kill you, but also make you save a bunch of times. Sablier is way ahead of everybody else. Mollyman know the game, obviously they know where to go, but they're dying way more than Sablier, and that's why Sablier is already done with the first level here.
Thought Mollyman was going to go for a bit of a skip here in this room. You can just walk just off the right side edge of the platform as it's moving towards you, rather than waiting for it to come back and be moving away from you. But these are the things you can do, the little things like that to do rooms faster, are almost always incredibly precise, because the game is designed to ask you to do some fairly precise things just to beat the room normally. So if there's some way to do it abnormally, it's generally some weird cycle that was maybe only barely intended to be possible, and they're all very, very difficult. Sablier moving into what is probably an incredibly difficult room when you first play the game, the tower, with probably the most jammin' soundtrack in a game filled with jammin' soundtracks. But the tower, actually, because of this forced scrolling, once you're familiar with the layout and you've been speedrunning for a while, it's actually kind of one of the easier sections.
It is. The auto-scrollers are usually playing with the player's nerves, but not too deadly, although you have to remember that any mistake will cost you way more time than any regular section, because even if you have a lot of checkpoints here and there. Oh wow, Sablier actually goes for the half-second time saves by dying as it takes the checkpoint. The level resets exactly where they want. They died here, unfortunately, but that was not too bad. And meanwhile, Molgames is making their way through the warp zone on the bottom right corner, and Max Fred is way behind, but Mollyman is finally getting to the tower to catch up with Sablier, but Sablier is almost already done. It's incredible how big a difference and how much time you can lose in VVV. Actually, my bad. Mollyman goes to the lab, a level that we usually do fourth. But apparently Mollyman is just going for it. It doesn't matter at all. It's the exact same thing. The only thing it's going to change is the color of the your friend during the intermissions.
Yeah, there is in between each major section, you eventually start ending up in this sort of weird area that's kind of between dimensions even, and you and whoever you just rescued are trapped there, and you have to do a couple different things to get out. I haven't checked to see if you get like different dialogue depending on who you're stuck with. Sablier is following the route that most speedrunners follow, whether this is just so they can all compare against each other, or if there's like some crazy microscopic advantage like in text boxes or something. I'm not sure, but is here with the red character, Vermilion maybe? Not sure.
Yeah,
Definitely starts with a V.
Yeah, all the characters' names start with a V.
And a very, very difficult section here. Needs to edge forward to get the guy to walk off the cliff without hitting the spikes, and then heading into a very difficult room here.
Arguably the hardest one. Here you have to so Vermilion only moves if you're touching the ground. If you touch the sling, they don't move. Wow, goes for the skip and get it. Flipping like that is actually a frame perfect input, which is a bit less impressive than considering it's a 30 FPS game, but still very, very precise, and just going for it in such a room is actually shows practice and dedication. Sablier has been running for the UD for a long time, and they're very, very good at learning fast, and I'm not surprised they're performing so well on VVV tonight.
Molaman, not so good actually. Just flipped right into some spikes. I think that was preemptively trying to mash through some text boxes and didn't go far enough to activate the text boxes. So the input to skip the text box also ends up being the input to flip yourself. And if there's some spikes above you, you can end up with some pretty embarrassing deaths. We got Mulgames, who is bouncing rapidly back and forth. We'll see plenty of this later on as the players clear out some of these more areas. There's the rather infamous Gravitron section, and it is one of the hardest things to optimize and learn. This is a kind of a mean room if you don't know the secret, but if you do know the secret, Mulgames just flies through. Just one little hesitation to make that room absolutely trivial. Molaman actually going up on the ceiling and flipping down to make it a little bit easier on the first part of this room that can be pretty tricky, but there's no shortcut to dealing with this difficult room here. We'll see how Molaman does with Not As I Do. It's going well so far.
They're going the long way around, and actually the intended way probably, but nobody dies, so that's a good sign. Sablier entered the warp zone, arguably the hardest level. All those cycles you have to wait for, and all those traps are deadly, and lots of skips as well. Sablier doesn't take any checkpoint here, and so the death would be very costly.
It's making me pretty nervous. Yeah, unfortunately, most of the checkpoints are not on the way. You have to actually double back as soon as you enter the room to get the next checkpoint. But does at least get one, very shortly before dying. And now is off cycle here. This is something, once you start to practice these rooms in VVV, you get used to everything being on the same cycle as soon as you enter the screen, and you do the thing, and then you win. But if you die, the cycles don't reset, so everything is now different, and you need to either wait for them to line up again, which in some cases is a long time, or maybe not at all, or it's just incredibly difficult to tell because there's more than one thing on a cycle in the room, or you just have to improvise a little bit, and it can mean one small mistake can lead to a number of mistakes that can end up costing more time than you'd think.
Improvisation in VVV is actually tough. You learn the rooms, you know exactly how to go through them. There's only, oh no, not taking the checkpoint was actually very costly here. Finally, they get it. No problem. Each room is so short, but it's so easy to lose a lot of time, and they missed the exit twice here and actually have to deal with a bunch of death. I Love You could be the most deadly room for Sablier here. Has died 5 or 6 times already. Make that 7. The game tells you at the end of the your run which room killed you the most, and usually it's the Gravitron, but sadly having a lot of trouble here actually allowing the other player to catch up. Molly, it's hard to tell because everybody does the levels out of order. Mollyman is in the tower, Max Fred is exiting the ship, and Mulgames apparently took the teleporter, and that warped the game out of the stream.
Yeah. Hopefully that will come back. Yeah, we're gonna focus on these 3 for now. That room, the Say I Love You and whatever the the I don't love you anymore room is with the broken hearts. Whatever those are called, those are the 2 rooms I had in mind when I was talking about cycles not syncing up anymore. The hearts moving vertically are on a different cycle than the hearts moving horizontally, and if they don't line up properly, sometimes it's just impossible. Mulliman, with one of the worst deaths you can take in the tower there, right at the very end, flipping too early. There are spikes that will come meet you, even if there aren't any spikes waiting in the rest of the level. You should be fine, but Sablier is not fine here. Taking a death in the Gravitron, these lines will automatically flip you as soon as you touch them, so you have no control over your up and down movement. You've only got your left and right, and you're just trapped in here dealing with these patterns for a solid minute.
There are strict pattern on how the squares appear, but they're pretty difficult to deal with, and semi-random, so depending on the time, you will have the square coming from the left and faster, and then coming from the right and faster, and then things get complicated. In about a second, Sablier will have to deal with squares coming from both sides, and that's actually mind-bending. It's very, very difficult to dodge those, and watching someone experienced actually do the Gravitron without deathless, without dying a single time, is insane. Look at Sablier's mastery here. They dealt with the hardest part, arguably being between 30 and 20 seconds, and they should be fine for the end here.
I just realized there's a high chance that a deathless Gravitron makes its way into the achievement list for the UD, and I'm not looking forward to it at all. It sounds horrible, but it is the reality. If you want to speedrun this game, you can practice all of these rooms over and over again, but one of these rooms is this room, and you're going to have to practice it quite a bit, I think, before you finally get your deathless Gravitron. Malaman also joining Sablier in here. Sablier has died a lot. You probably have noticed that there are checkpoints every 5 seconds, and that is kind of really key. He has at least moved on to the last checkpoint here. Doing this sort of S movement is a really good way to get through some of these patterns. It'll also work a little bit on this one, but doesn't need it. Manages to get through. Malaman has caught up quite a bit in the Gravitron. I can't remember, they've taken different routes to get here, but I feel like it has actually caught up like quite a bit.
Yeah, Sablier still has the lab, so with the white lines to go through, and Mulliman still has 1 level as well.
The warp zone, I think.
Warp zone is fairly long. We'll see on Mulliman's screen where they headed to. And that's not where you want to go, Mulliman.
No, this is me. The overworld sections are surprisingly difficult because you have no major control over your up and down movement. You've just got this flip, and these rooms are so gigantic. You actually need to be somewhat precise in how you flip to get through the overworld section cleanly. There are so many places where there's just like a little lip somewhere that will prevent you from moving. That you need to flip to get past, and flipping will mean like several screen transitions. So this is a worst case scenario. Not only is Mulliman having trouble moving around the overworld, but he's also just straight up lost here.
Yeah, he's not moving in the correct direction. Wow, that's a trinket. You're headed towards Mulliman. You should go top left, and yeah, they're going to the map. But seeing a speedrunner open a map to get direction is usually a very bad sign, and Sablier is not stopping for anything here. They're into halfway through the lab. Clearly they know a setup I don't, because they went back to touch a wall to get the correct alignment. You move 3 pixels by 3 pixels in VVV, and if you have touched the correct walls, you will have the correct directions and placement to go optimally through certain places. And Sablier is already done, while Mulliman is still struggling to find this evil.
This is really scary. Like yeah, here we go. There are a couple of places in the overworld that are very similar. There's a couple rooms that really stand out, but there's a lot of rooms that are that don't. So it can be very difficult to find your way if you're looking for a certain landmark, and that's just really tough to deal with in a race, right? Like you start to panic, and that really does not help your ability to calmly reason through the situation and find your way through. So, and Mollyman's really not going to be happy about that, but he is back on track and going to be able to follow through on the end here. Sablier, meanwhile, is heading through sort of the final section. You've rescued all the crew members, but you know, the crazy dimensions being what they are, you've been trapped somewhere alone, and you have to get through this gauntlet featuring elements from all the other previous areas all slapped together here.
Yeah, that's one of the best trope in video game history. I feel everybody has done, every game dev has done it at some point, slapping all the best or worst, depending on your point of view, feature at the end of your video game, and Vivi does it pretty consistently. Actually, it has all the traps, but in a novel way, and it's actually fairly interesting, but also very difficult. You have to have setups everywhere, and it's hard to move fast through those lines, through the spikes. So Sablier does a great job. And the final stretch here on the bottom left of the screen, they finally set up the dimension correctly, so you can move on and take off. But first, you have to make your way back to your ship, and this is actually very difficult. This room, especially with the bugs here and on the conveyor belt, is super hard and tricky to maneuver.
Yeah, you have to release and repress the button very precisely, or you're not going to get lined up correctly. And then that means you need to do it again, and now you're maybe even having to wait an amount of time that you're not used to, you're unpracticed with. It can very easily end up with you just kind of like repeatedly edging towards this thing on this conveyor belt, making zero progress. It can feel pretty bad. Not a problem for Sablier, who is flying now through the end section. The return of the auto-scroller happens. You got the panic room, which is scrolling down here. And
Nice.
This room goes absolutely flawlessly. There's just a little bit left here. Heaven's Gate before the final challenge. There are two weird deaths here to take near at the end, but finally moving on to the final challenge. Let's go.
Those spikes are deadly, but once again, it's the kind of game where if you have a setup, sometimes feel like you cannot die. And Sablier gets the final trinket and is finally in space. But I feel like VVV is probably not only a hard game to get a good score in UD, it's probably also the hardest game to get a PB live. Sablier finishes with the 1924 in-game time. I don't remember what their PB is, but it's an 1852, so very close, but not enough.
Yeah, very, very good one from Sablier. Mollyman probably would have had a very big PB if he didn't get lost, unfortunately. So we'll see, even after this setback, how they're doing. Their PB is a 2056, so that's about to tick over on the clock here. Is going to be within a minute or two, I assume. Depends on how this all goes. It's moving pretty cleanly. This is a really tough room if you don't have a visual cue for, and looks like Mollyman is going to get through it eventually, and is definitely wants that checkpoint. Even though there's a totally free one here, it's tough to keep track of exactly which checkpoints are sort of the important ones.
Jimmy Hat in chat asking the real and most important question: is the game supposed to take place in the future or is it present day? I'm not sure. Maybe it's in the past. But Mollyman is almost done if they can figure out the way through the maze here to get to to stabilize the dimensions. While Molgames is not stuck, but like everyone else in the Gravitron, it's a very tough room, so they've died a couple of times, obviously. Oh wow, that death is actually very costly. Right at the end, the final stretch is not the hardest, and dying and losing five entire seconds right before the end is hard, you know.
It either takes place in the future or in a completely alternate universe, where humans have heads that are almost the size of their body. And there's a thing that will pop up. I don't know if we'll get a chance to see it on because sadly
Oh
it's not as
yes,
paused the game here. But the final scene of them all playing music is like in a band
it's
together is probably
terrifying.
it's supposed to be like really cute and fun, but they render
It's
them the same way they do in the game. So they're
no, it's awful. If you don't know, it's literally made of nightmares. The funniest thing to me about VVV is that the face of the your character is exactly the face from Lone 10 in Lone 4.
oh, you're right.
It's so weird. But Lawnmower is not going to be played tonight, sadly. It's going to be another day. We've seen quite a bit of Lawnmower, and Mollyman is making their way through the final stretch here of VVV. We're close to PB, but they should try to go as fast as possible, obviously, to get there. Mulligames finishes the final level here for them, the tower, and Max Frad is a little bit behind Mollyman, but not much.
It's good to have Mulgames back. They've been trucking away in that bottom right corner after some stream troubles. Hopefully that doesn't, if you have to like stop playing to mess with your stream, that is definitely frustrating. But even if all you had to do was tap a button during a cutscene, you're still thinking about it. It can be very distracting. So hopefully they were able to play the way that they wanted to play today. Mollyman into the panic room. It's got the music, it's got the auto scrolling, and it feels kind of scary, but it's really not so big a deal. However, the final challenge has some really difficult parts with these flipping lines, particularly this like 4-directional set of lines here with the spikes everywhere, and the spikes are not symmetric. They're a little off on the top and bottom. It can be actually pretty difficult, and once you die once, you're starting with in kind of a different place on the screen, and that can make it very unfamiliar and kind of harder to deal with afterwards. So one death leads to a couple there for Mollyman, as tends to be the case, but is now running, flipping into outer space. This is going to be a sub 25 for Mollyman. Probably, like, if this time in a vacuum, they might be like, oh, that's not so good ever, but the fact that they lost so many minutes due to just not knowing where to go, I'm sure they're not going to be happy with.
Yeah, that's something very easy to fix, something very easy to learn. When you learn the Spirit of VVV, you're not going to spend too much time with the overworld, which might come back and bite you. You have to learn every single part of the game, but most of the players that are very invested into grinding the speedruns they're playing did grind the VVV using the time trials, and the time trials start you right at the start of the stage instead of having you to move from the spaceship to the actual place the stage starts at. So you have to master everything, but knowing the direction, it's up, left, up, right, down, left, down, right. It's overall pretty easy to navigate once you figured out a couple of cues, but obviously you have to spend a little bit of time with that. Molgames is almost done. Max Fred is just done. And a lot of runners are actually already done with the game. Mohawk, with no surprise, took the lead with a 15-18. Mohawk is actually the world record holder for the category, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, unless that's changed in the past week or so, I believe that is true. 15-18 is 20 seconds off the world record, I think. So pretty darn good, nigh unbeatable for anyone competing in today's tournament. But no, that's not true, because Zan is also in the UD and is challenging Mohawk in several categories on VVV. Has the record in at least one or two. So those two will be battling each other, perhaps, but then there's like a 40-second gap between them and the next closest player, which is Jant. So VVV is it just speaks to how difficult a game it is that there is this 40-second gap, even in this game as short and as simple as it can appear.
It does look very easy, but it's deceiving. It's so hard. Devil Tifa is in second place with 201 points, and Sugi Toast is at 199, very very close together. I'm not sure if Mohawk is going to actually play out there somewhere in Mega Man. They're the kind of specialist UD runners where they don't practice the full set of games, so usually they have spectacular result on a single game and they fall short on the others. So we'll see. Little May and Sablier are tied to the fourth place, so it's going to be actually very intense between all the players. But within all four restreams, Sablier took the lead by quite a lot.
Yeah, this was something we kind of expected to see looking at everyone's PBs. In VVV, Sablier has a 14 point advantage over Molamin, and then there's like another 14-point gap between them and Maxfrad, and then again with Molgames. So everyone's kind of stretched out on VVV, but on Out There Somewhere, it's a little bit closer. Sablier still has the edge by 3 points over Molgames, though, and then it's 5 points between Molgames and Molamin, and then 15 between Molamin and Maxfrad. So Out There Somewhere is going to be an important game for Maxfrad to try to stem the bleeding from that 15-point difference. But sometimes people don't fully submit and update all their PBs, so you can be led astray sometimes just looking at everyone's PBs. And then we've got Mega Man, which is a very, very difficult game to play and to race, and it's very, very easy to die and all the spikes everywhere, and then you're going to be looking at 30 seconds to maybe even a minute lost, especially if it's a game over death. So there is and everyone's somewhat close, within 20 points of each other ish on Mega Man, but again, the advantage does go to Sablier on that one. So they're well poised to take this among the players on stream, but again, like you said, all those other players racing off stream are also here in the tournament and are doing quite well.
Molly Man stating in chat that shows poorly their ways to through the overworld, made their way to the lab by mistake, and then they were kind of lost in the order they were going for, so sadly lost about, I don't know, maybe a minute, maybe even more. It felt like a long time, but time passes slowly when you're lost. Molgames is finally done with VVV game complete. A bit off PB, but playing through the game and beating it live on net is not easy at all. With a total of 1,300 flips and 165 deaths. They made it, and as we say, Mohawk is insane, absurdly good at VVV, way ahead of everybody else, a minute and 30 seconds ahead of Devil Tifa and Sugi Toast, actually.
Yeah, this is just the nature of this game, and for everyone else's sake, hopefully Mohawk indeed is only playing VVV, but I've just been so impressed with Mohawk's ability in the games that they do play to excel. So, I mean, part of that comes from the fact that they aren't putting their time towards all these other games, I suppose. But I would love to see Mohawk sit down and grind out the other games in the decathlon, because I think they could easily be up there with the Devil Tifas and the Mel West from past season and Super Link God and Taker and all the top players. I think Mohawk could be one of them, but they're gonna go wherever their heart takes them, and we'll see if it takes them to somewhere out there, somewhere out there, or if it looks like maybe Double Tifa, Soggy Toast, or Little Mai, the really well-rounded players, are going to take it. Actually tied between Little Mai and Sablier, and Le Remy very, very close as well. But there is a bit of a gap between third and fourth, so that will need to be overcome for anyone looking to grab one of those silver stars.
Yeah, top 3 is definitely a good goal for anyone up there. Sablier, Loremi, and the Shepard as well could get there, but first they have to go out there somewhere and Have we seen the game on stream? I don't remember actually. Everything goes so fast during UD7, but it's an interesting game. The base concept is very straightforward. It's very short. It's fairly easy if you play it casually. But it's one of those speedrun where losing time is super easy. For some reason, you can feel like you're doing good and get a run twice or 3 times like as your PB, like for no reason. It's like inertia in that sense, from past season, where you will lose a lot of time very quickly. A single mistake will throw you back quite a lot. The skips are very finicky. Frame perfect or a couple of frames to perform your tricks, and they are not worth so much time. So you have to take a strong decision at the start of your run. Do you go for the harder stuff, or do you commit 30 seconds and don't go for it? I'm not sure what's the best strat, so we'll see what our runners take on those questions.
Yeah, we've seen the UD community kind of come to a consensus on a lot of things throughout the season. You know, like Donkey Kong Country last season, everyone was kind of like, yeah, we're going to do super jumps. It's just not worth the time investment to get good enough at doing these levels without the super jumps to actually save time. So everyone kind of decided that the safety speed trade-off went a certain way in that game, and it's looking like people have kind of decided it's gone a particular way in this game, because I'm seeing so many people doing these out of bounds, even some of like the very first tournaments. So it's very aggressive, I think. These are incredibly difficult. You can see Sablier is practicing some now, Molgames as well. It's not just like one precise thing you need to do. It's always like multiple, and if you fail even one of them, the trick fails. And depending on how it fails, maybe you just fell somewhere really weird and it takes a while to get back there. Like, Molgames just fell here, has to climb all the way back up to try this again. I don't know if it's surprising to me or if this is just the kind of crazy stuff I expect to see from the people in the UD, but everyone has decided we're going to go out of bounds.
Yeah, I like the fact that for some reason, you have the community all together decides for a meta speedrun, a way to speedrun and to play for those races, and in the end everybody kind of does the same thing, still with their own way of doing things. I'm not sure if it's actually worth going for that first out of bound. Molgames is intensively practicing here, and feels like they have a fairly good success rate, but a good success rate on that trick is like, I don't know, maybe 20% would be decent for a newer player, and maybe you can go up to 50%. But each try takes so much from you and from your final time. We'll see what everybody decides to go for. Everybody going to start a new game. Molgames is taking a few seconds here to practice one last time. I hope they've seen the notification, and Molgames,
the countdown.
Yeah,
it's hopefully not ticking away on a window minimized somewhere, but I'm pretty sure they had a lot of stream delay on the first race, so pretty sure that's all this is. The race has started indeed. You can watch the players on the left side to see them actually playing the race right now. This is it's a fun game. It's a little platformer, puzzle-ish game. You've got a gun that will teleport you to wherever your bullet lands, with some exceptions. There are some surfaces that your bullet will not attach to. There are surfaces your bullet will go through, like these bars here that Molgames is shooting through. And the big sort of thing that you have to manipulate your way through is if you are moving upwards as your bullet hits something and you teleport, you maintain that upwards momentum. So that will let you do some intended things to sort of jump out of a teleport, and also some kind of unintended things to jump out of a teleport.
So Molgames is not going for the out of bounds, while Sablier is struggling here to get the double jump. It's actually very difficult. Once again, super precise. They're going for a different setup that what I'm used to see from the players. They're actually trying to go for the fastest and most optimized way of doing things, but it feels like it's not going super well for them. So they're actually deciding not to go for it, while Mollyman is way ahead here. Everybody has some weird poses. I don't know what's going on, but Molgamis is super ahead. They've succeeded at the first out of bound and made their way through the second one super quickly. So they're already a good 30 seconds ahead, and once again the world record is 5 minutes and 44 seconds. So any second lost matters.
I think the UD leaderboard was around the 6:30 mark last I checked. Now I'm curious. Actually, it's still there. Superlink odds 6:29 is indeed the best time. Don't think we'll see anything close to that. It's already well out of reach for these players on their runs right now. Certainly something they could hope to achieve later in the season. Molgames is the first one to go through the secret passage in town here to pick up the Gauss gun. Or Gauss gun, it might be. I don't know if it's named after the mathematician / astronomer, but it is a gun. It shoots just straight up. It'll hurt enemies. It'll break blocks. We're mostly interested in the block breaking part of it to progress, but there are a couple places where there's an enemy who's like really right in your way and does require a lot of shots to kill, but is pretty fast and safe. So I think a lot of players will opt to kill at least a couple things.
I'm not sure if you can beat the game without killing anybody. Actually, that would be a good challenge. Noting for myself as an achievement. Mollyman goes out their way here to pick up a second heart. While sadly he's having a lot of trouble, but finally makes it out of bound and picks up the second heart here that Mollyman passed a couple of minutes ago. Molgames is not stopping for anything, going through those green beams. The blue beams you can pass, but they block your shot. Oh wow! Something goes through the platform here. Very good, cutting it too short. So blue beams, they stop your shots, but you can go through. Green beam, they actually shoot your projectile upward. So you're going to teleport on the ceiling they collide with. So that's an interesting mechanic. You can also jump from the collision and have a weird double jump that's going to be useful to go for some skips. And Molgames is in the tower. Very tricky part. That's the middle of the run, pretty much. So they're on their way for a very good time here.
Yeah, doing a nice little trick there to get some extra height, sort of just passing through the blue beam, shooting at the correct time, jumping way off the tower, landing on top of this little block here. I wonder if it just was chance that this block is right there to catch you as you fall. I mean, not that you need to worry about fall damage or anything, but it just so happens you land right there when you jump off the top of the tower. Doing a bit of a sequence break there, jumping through the green beam and shooting a projectile. This is where the game is kind of trying to tutorialize you on the idea of having two shots in play at once. How it works is whichever one hits first, you'll teleport there, and then whichever one hits second, you will teleport there afterwards. And you can use that to shoot a shot somewhere that you want to go, and then use a second shot to teleport you somewhere safe, because maybe you're about to fall into some lava, say.
It's going to be totally mandatory on that room here where Molgames is. They took the small place as a safety net while the first projectile they shot was traveling, and this part here they just cleared is actually very hard to time because you have lava exactly one tile under the place you're supposed to shoot your projectile at, so it's very precise to get correctly. Suiciding here to get back immediately to the checkpoint. That's fairly classic, I think, in a speedrun. Dying to get back to a checkpoint should be one of the top 10 most used speed strat, and it made its way into up there somewhere. Just here though, because you don't do too much backtracking in the entire game.
It used to be somewhat controversial, actually. There were many categories that you'll see categories in some games that are like with and without death warps, just because that was the way everyone used to play. It was considered sort of, foul play, or I don't know, just outside the scope of the rule set that players felt comfortable using for a long time in speedrunning's history. But nowadays, it is incredibly commonplace to do this. So, oh, Mulgamus, nice, getting a little bit of extra oomph coming out of that green beam. It's another one of these little precise things that you can do, but it does save a second or so in that room. Mulgamus went for it first try, and that's cool to see. Here's another, this enemy is blocking this entire platform over here, and maybe there's some insane thing you can do once this block is at like the top of its cycle or something, but I think probably you have to get over there, so gonna go ahead and take out that big guy.
You can shoot and get a frame perfect jump out of the oh no, they fell back.
The full loop.
Okay, good. There is a frame perfect jump out of iframe to get back to safety up there, but those tricks are very, very difficult, and if you do fail, you go back to all the way to the bottom of the tower, so it's some of the most biggest time loss in the entire run, so you don't want. I understand totally why someone would not want to go for that. 2 beams here. The first one teleports you on the ground, so you will be able to re-jump as soon as you teleport at the second place, but the timing is very, very precise. So here we go. Mulgamus gets it on the 4th try here, and he's almost done with the game actually.
Yep, it is a pretty short game, and Mulgamus has had a great run so far compared to having the worst VVV by far. I'm actually curious to see how the points are going to shake out after this. Is coming out really strong, and some players, even if they have some good times, and Molly and Sablier have made a lot of mistakes this run, so they are going to be quite a bit of ways back as Mulgamus is into the boss fight. Every 3 hits, this guy's going to teleport to the other side of the room. And that fight was almost over, and Mulgamus died. So that is maybe the second biggest time loss you can have in this game. Also, most people are teleporting to the other side of the checkpoint, so they're gonna get sent one room further back. But yeah, you just need to make sure that you've got your projectiles in the air traveling, and they'll just kind of be there to hit the boss as soon as he teleports. There's a pretty crazy lightning attack that you need to teleport to the other side of if you aren't constantly hitting him, but as long as you keep him stunned like that, it's a very straightforward fight.
Very nicely done. Being able to stun lock that boss is super cool because it's an annoying fight where the boss goes out of reach and you cannot hit them for an entire cycle. So just being able to cancel those things is a good, vengeance on the Kirby bosses that are certainly not. Don't allow it to go as fast, but here we go, Mulgamus with the good old mashing test, the trial of hammering your controller as fast as possible succeeded, and Mollyman is on the boss fight here, straight to the left, straight to the right, and done perfectly. The boss will not even shoot at you once, but it's very, very tricky to do.
Mollyman accidentally shooting his teleporter across while the beam was still up in the middle, so it stopped him and dropped him into the lava. Did have to walk back from the checkpoint, but the boss does not respawn or anything, so is still going to be able to jump into this final section here that Mulgamus didn't do so good at, actually. Was missing a lot of shots and wasn't mashing quite as hard as Mollyman is here, so Mollyman's going to pick up some time in this final fight. You generally have enough health that you can afford to be very, very aggressive. But if you get insane, if you don't dodge anything and you don't have god tier mashing, you will lose the DPS race. So you need to be at least a little evasive. Mulliman has more than enough health left remaining, finishing in about 9:30 or so, about a minute back from Mulgamus. We'll see. Sablier had the best VVV, but the timer's already ticking over the 10-minute mark here.
They have a very good PB on There Somewhere, I thought, but apparently maybe a little bit out of practice. Their PB is 738. That's very, very solid. I have a good deal of respect for the players that can play There Somewhere. It's those short games where with very precise tricks are super difficult to grind because a single mistake usually means that you have to reset. So they can be exhausting for the players. But they're even harder to get consistent at, apparently, and that's something to be said for those players because UD is usually a lot about consistency because it's mostly only races, so consistency is key. And Sebly is going still to beat MaxFred, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be displeased with their final time here.
Yeah, the culprit seemed to be the out of bounds at the start. It was a huge time loss for Sablier, and I don't know if it was stubbornness or what, but they just wanted to keep trying. Eventually, did move on, but finishing just under 12 minutes. I guess on the in-game time, it is quite a bit faster than the real time. MaxFred is not doing nearly as bad at compared to the top finishers in BVB here than they are out there somewhere already entering the boss fight here. We'll see what kind of pattern he is going to get that shot. So that shot that if you're not fast enough at stopping is going to kind of mess with your shots on the next cycle. So it makes it very difficult to sort of get back on the optimal cycle. Once that fireball comes out, you're going to see it a couple times in this fight.
Here we go. Final boss is dead. We have to go for the machine race in space. But apparently the production have had enough. We know exactly how it's going. MaxFred is going to destroy the boss and finish in 11:34. So what happened to Seblia? Seblia dropped quite a bit at 353 now. That's about 40 points behind Soggy Toast, actually. That's a big drop.
Yep, this is a time they're going to be disappointed with, especially compared to their PB. But this game, that can happen in this game. If you go for the really crazy stuff, your success rate needs to be quite good in order for it to save time in a race on average, and if it's not, something like this can happen. So Sablier is very far back, is only 8 points back from third place though, so that silver star still within reach, but Devil Tifa is making it very difficult to take the gold star. Soggy Toast is in the run though, 9 points rather behind Devil Tifa. But finding those 9 points against Devil Tifa in Mega Man is going to be very difficult. So big advantage for Devil Tifa heading into the final game. We can see MaxFred's time has earned them 317 points, needs 20 points to catch Malaman in Mega Man. And Malaman's pretty good at Mega Man, so it will definitely be an uphill battle. But between MaxFred and Molgames, they are 1 point apart heading into the final game.
Yeah. That's it's going to be interesting for sure. The category is killing 10 bosses from Mega Man 1 through 6. The requirement is to beat at least one boss from each game, so you have to play a little bit of those. And apparently your strategy, Mythical, is to play the least amount possible of Mega Man 3, 4, and 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, the game gets more complicated in those games because Mega Man gets the slide, Mega Man gets the charge buster, and it's just more buttons to be pressing in order to go as fast as possible. And it creates some interesting things you have to do with your thumb. If you're trying to hold a charge while sliding, it's a very different thing you do with your thumb if you play with your thumb, and I do, right? I feel like if you play with your fingertips, it's probably easier to do a lot of the more advanced stuff in 3, 4, 5, 6, but for me, I found it very difficult, so I opted to keep it simple with the just run and gun platforming in Mega Man 1 and 2, and it turns out to be quite fast, actually. Mega Man 2 has some of the fastest stages of the goal. Most players are going to be doing a lot of stages from Mega Man 2. but I didn't want to do Airman because that is a very, very difficult stage. So I threw in Cutman from Mega Man 1, which it was kind of weird. I don't think we're going to see that from anyone today.
I've seen some players actually do that. I think Little Mai does it, Olnuker as well. So sadly, we're not going to see it on stream, but I'm fairly certain some players are going for Cutman. Maybe not both Cutman and Gutsman though. I'm not sure who's and where the players are at. Tomorrow evening, we're doing at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're doing twist in the category, and it's on multiple games, and one of those games is Mega Man. What would you change in the category for it to make it fun and just a good fun casual race, Mythical?
Well, the part of me that wants to be lazy would just be like, you can do Mega Man 2, but only on difficult mode. But I think, do any of the other Mega Men have difficulty modes? I think that might be the only one.
It's the only one, yeah.
So that's not a thing you can do. You could take a look at like the 20 most popular Robot Masters in the UD and ban them and make them do other ones.
Yeah, actually banning the biggest chunk of all those games would be pretty insane as a difficulty curve, because you cannot pretend. If you do not know a level in any Mega Man games, it's going to show, right? It's if you've never beaten the boss, if you've never seen some death traps, because usually players, when they die in Mega Man, they don't die from exhaustion. They don't die from having no HP left. They die because spikes or holes or, I don't know, being crushed or something terrible. But all the 6 classic Mega Mans on the NES are filled with death traps, and if you're not prepared, you're going to die. It's certain. So that would be fun. I'm not going to spoil it quite yet, because the players would prepare, and that would be awful for the fun and entertainment. But we're going to play tomorrow. What are the other games? Let me get that. It's going to be so only twist on the categories. So it's the players have to get ready for anything pretty much, and it's going to be a Neo Turf Master and Trackmania 2. So 3 very, very different games, and on Neo Turf Master, everybody is going to guess, I'm certain.
I've got a pretty good guess.
Yeah, I think it's almost obvious, seeing the category. You have 2 main parameters, right? The character and the course. So it's very hard to change anything but that. Mega Man is a fantastic series, one of the most played and speedrun series in the world. And Mega Man 11 is having a very entertaining tournament on Speed Gaming. I'm never sure when the tournaments are done, because I never have time to watch them. But Mega Man 1 through 6 have some pretty insane bosses, but thank God we're going to see only the easiest ones.
Yeah, the fastest and easiest bosses, more so than the fastest and easiest stages, I think is what has guided players to pick which Robot Masters they are going to defeat. For example, anyone who does Toadman, right? Like, that is a very, very difficult stage, but just has a boss fight that is totally free. And there are some players who are willing to put up with that difficult stage if it means having that very free boss fight. They are very, very difficult. Some of the hardest stuff to optimize. And it's a big concern, because generally it's very difficult to get through a stage in Mega Man without taking some damage. And so then you get to the boss fight, their health meter fills all the way up and yours is not. So winning from that sort of disadvantage sometimes can be very difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if here and there we saw players take intentional deaths just to get that refill, and not try to be a hero with your 1 health, your 1 grain of rice, and try to take out Robot Master without getting hit. Certainly it's possible on some. We're seeing Mulgamas practice Windman, one of the more achievable. The projectile that comes out is pretty fast and moves in kind of a weird way, but once you stand in the right place, it's just one jump, and you'll have it pretty much every time. You could also be very close and have them go around you, but I find that to be a lot harder and a lot scarier than the jump. Windman, one of the most popular Mega Man 6 Robot Masters, so very likely we'll see some Windman. I mean, with Mulgamus practicing it, we're definitely going to see some Windman. I don't know how much we'll see, though.
I think there are a lot of players going for Windman now in Mega Man 6. Blizzard Man and Flame Man are fairly short, but Windman has the good advantage of not having too hard of a stage, too hard of a boss, and being doable in very, very quickly. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the players do prefer. And sometimes it's weird. Like we've seen Sarek last time going for very, very different bosses from anyone and having very good times actually. So all the stages are some are very, very, very long. Don't go for Alec Man in Mega Man 1. But
the beam, you get the beam.
Oh, you get the beam. Overall,
the magnet beam.
The players.
It's the incredibly hard to difficult to use, only usable in one stage, half a stage in the goal magnet beam. It's there if you do the glitch that can soft lock your game to get it. No problem. Easy.
Why would anyone do that? Mega Man 1 is a very interesting speedrun though. Very, very tricky, lots of tech, lots of zipping. Using the items correctly is actually made difficult by how the game is made and coded, and thank God they changed a lot going into Mega Man 2. Which is way easier to play, but it's pretty cool to see the players play actually all 6 different games, because you have to learn a little bit on how to mash in Mega Man 3 and how to slide and charge your shots correctly in Mega Man 4, 5, and 6, and deal with the very, very small hitbox from your charge shots in Mega Man 4 and have it solved as a problem immediately on Mega Man 5. So it's pretty cool. Gutsman for both Sablier and Mollyman, as well as Mulgamus. Maxrad will start shortly. Gutsman, very, very short level, very deadly, killed a lot of kids, getting Mega Man as a Christmas gift and going into that level first. Probably had some very bad experience, but those platforms killed a lot of players, I can tell you that. It's very, very hard to understand how they react, but once you're familiar with them, no problem for both Mollyman. Sablier is done as well. Mulgamis should be there. Yep, no issue whatsoever.
Hopefully Maxrad's stream catches up. But yeah, not even just little kids on Christmas Day, like even a couple speedrunners in this tournament have gotten caught up on these platforms, so they're not easy by any means. Everyone is using the select glitch to damage boost through these Hammer Brother looking dudes. They're incredibly hard to deal with without the select glitch. This is something that sort of cancels the knockback that happens when you get hit, and that lets you immediately regain control, not fall into any pits, and walk past each of them. It does mean that you're going to be taking a chunk of health, so some players might opt to pick up some of the health refills on the vertical section falling down. Looks like everyone is not quite very fully healthy, and it can be a concern because that big guy, that huge gigantic hopping thing, takes forever to kill, so you want to just go past it. But if it gives you, it's random whether it jumps high or low. So you're very likely, if randomness is not in your favor, you're going to take a hit from that guy. He hurts a lot. You come into Gutsman with very low health, and it's not so easy to have a perfect Gutsman fight. It looks like so far Mulliman trying to use the select glitch to get multiple hits with the busters, but has the best fight by far. Sablier and Mulgames are both, they're getting stomped on. You need to jump as soon as Gutsman touches the ground in order to avoid this stun animation. And it's actually incredibly precise, so a difficult fight. Looks like Sablier and Mulgames kind of fudge their way through it. As long as you're shooting shots in the spare moments that you have, you will probably come out on top of Gutsman, but not if you show up with low health. So everyone had the health to get through there and move on to their second stage.
Most of Mega Man boss fights with Buster only are done to the DPS race. That's true until you have the charge shots, where you'd rather charge your beam and try to aim it as much as possible. But we're going to see a lot of mashing with the Buster on Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3. For 3 different levels from the players: Flashman for Mollyman, Quickman for Molgamis, and Middleman for Sablier. Doing the boss in any order doesn't matter at all, because you have to reset once you've killed a boss. Thank God that means that we don't have to suffer through the very long cutscenes between levels in Mega Man 2.
Right, yeah, the weapon get cutscene is so long on the English version that it is the reason why the Japanese version is faster, even though you have to play on what we know as difficult mode here in the Japanese version. It is the only difficult mode, difficulty mode. So, you know, the bosses have like double the health, for example. This Flashman fight is actually incredibly difficult on that difficulty, thankfully. Like you can see Mollyman, if Flashman had another 7 hits you needed to find, Mollyman would have to do it without taking a single hit throughout the rest of the fight. It is actually incredibly difficult, but here on normal mode, you can just kind of get in his face, and he'll get in your face. You'll both hit each other, and he'll probably die first. Metal Man, fighting from a distance here, you don't have those quick boomerangs to sort of cheese the fight. So Sebly is getting hit quite a lot here. We'll see. He's going to need to start playing more defensively, minding the saw blades just a little more. But he's getting really aggressive. Oh my goodness! Oh, hold on.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I don't know how he survived. He went super aggressive and then played perfectly, flawlessly, dodging all the saw blades like, you know, Matrix style at the end here. Mollyman on the Airman stage here. So one of the ways you can optimize the level is by waiting for those platforms to appear, is just taking the full cycle here, but you can manipulate the sprites and the time at which they appear, so you can have better cycles. Mollyman is just going for safety here. Airman is very difficult, obviously, just because it's tiny platforms and any missed jump will kill you instantly. So Lie goes into Bubble Man, once again a very short stage, and has a cool zip actually, so it's a nice one to watch.
You can see Mollyman's getting hit by almost everything on these drill sections. It's possible to land with just your little baby toe on the edge and then jump over the spikes. But it is as precise as it sounds. Sablier is setting up for the zip here. Mega Man 2 has a number of zips, but you need some items to make it work. I don't know if Sablier is going to have enough. He's trying as absolute best to get every single pixel he can. Oh, you know what? It was the cropping was throwing me off. He actually had plenty of extra room to make that zip. Getting inside the wall and then tapping left actually triggers Mega Man to zip. I did find out if you are short, you can actually still do an A-trigger zip to sort of save it, but is incredibly difficult. Thankfully, he's got it. Didn't need to do anything crazy. As moving on, Mollyman is the first one to finish 2 Robot Masters. Molgames is heading into the Metal Man fight with very low health, so this is going to be a difficult fight.
Yeah, Middleman is a very short level, but they had the E-Tank picked up at the start of the stage, so no problem now. Being full HP, they could even have waited a little bit, took a couple of hits, and then used the E-Tank, but doesn't matter. The DPS race is going nicely for them, and Middleman should be dead shortly. Bubbleman has long iframes, so you don't want to mash, plus the water is changing the way you jump, so it can be a difficult fight, but once again you have so much HP in the easy mode, in the normal mode, my bad, that Sablier has no problem. Wow, Molgame is going into Crashman. That doesn't... I love Crashman, but sounds like a very, very bad idea.
This stage is incredibly fast when you have access to the items that let you get into walls and ceilings and do some out-of-bounds zipping. The players are playing... on this category, you have to reset after every Robot Master, so even if Molgames did earn those items from another stage, they would reset and not have them here. So Buster only, this is an incredibly slow and difficult stage. Mega Man does not climb ladders very fast until 6, I think he finally upgrades that ability. So it is it's slow even when done perfectly, and Molgames is making a lot of mistakes here because it's also a very difficult stage. There are so many things that can knock you off. You will let go of the ladder and drop like a stone. So many challenges still waiting in Crashman stages. Mulliman is very low on health. Quickman does die very quickly, but oh no, this is bad. Yeah, he needed Quickman to jump out of that corner so he could start getting some hits. But as soon as he stayed in there and just waited out the invincibility frames, it was clear that Mulliman was not going to be able to get 3 hits without one of those boomerangs or Quickman's body. It's just incredibly difficult to avoid taking damage in this fight. So you're counting on being able to just obliterate Quickman with 7 quick shots.
Sablier getting hit and then dodging the a second hit from those enemies. They take a big chunk of health. Anything big in Mega Man is going to take a third of your HP bar, so you have to be very careful around those. And if you want to kill them, well, then it's going to take a lot of time. So Quickman starts here for Sablier. They are trying to get stuck in the corner with the boss so they can get as many shots as possible, but it didn't work out as well as expected. So they're going to try again with a full HP bar this time. Molgames is only at the first half of Crashman stage here, and they have at least 5 or 6 screens of climbing a ladder upcoming. So it's so slow. It's going to take a long time. And Crashman without the airman weapon is actually as well pretty challenging. So it's I don't know if it's a mistake, if they're experimenting, if it's just for fun, and if they don't want to reset, but or if it's a lost bet with a friend. But really feels like a bad idea. That did not work out for Mulliman. They forgot to jump there.
So a death from Mulliman. Sablier had a second one to Quickman, but on the third try, when it absolutely mattered, because it was probably looking down the barrel of the game over gun in his face, it does come up with the kill on Quickman. Actually, a very convincing kill. So moving on to Flashman. Molgames still climbing these ladders. You can actually, depending on which way you're facing when you grab the ladder, Mega Man will, I think, kind of turn around and face the opposite way. Yeah, is going to get this E-Tank, but is going to have to go so far around. Oh, if you have an item 1, you can just place it and get back up. But if you don't, you have to go all the way down in order to come up the other side. This E-Tank, not worth it.
They're going to have to use it just to go back up there, because every single bird is going to take so much of their HP. I don't know what happened, but I think this is the last time we're seeing Crashman in this category. Mulliman is still hammering Mega Man 2 here, going into Bubble Man, so that's their 5th boss. So they're exhausting all the optional possibilities here, and they will have to go for 1 boss in Mega Man 3, 1 in Mega Man 4, 1 in Mega Man 5, and 1 in Mega Man 6, which is arguably not the fastest, but the best time for this weird category in the UD is actually with that specific route, so maybe it is.
Yeah, it's still unclear what is the absolute fastest route when every stage is fully optimized. The stats skew in favor of this 4 Mega Man 2 route, probably because it is what Medalo is doing, and Medalo has the world record in Mega Man 2 Buster only, is a fantastic Mega Man player, and is competing in the UD here today. So is like a minute ahead of everyone else. Ooh, Molgames not able to deal with the very difficult Crashman fight, who I think the AI there is he jumps when you jump, and then otherwise just moves back and forth left to right. So is a heavily manipulatable boss, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. Buster only. We'll see how Molgames does on the second try, as sadly is moving on to Mega Man 3, the first one to reach here, but it's actually still trailing in terms of Robot Masters behind Mulliman, who's halfway through Bubble Man here. And Molgames does come out on top.
Yeah. So they're still going for Mega Man 2. I hope they're not going for Hitman, because that would be a disaster. We've seen some Woodman, and Woodman is not the shortest, but not the longest, and you could decide to go for that. Sablier against those cats, it's a test of your meshing abilities. Right after Out There Somewhere, maybe the thumb are hurt, and it's going to be harder, but not too bad for Sablier. You have 2 of those, you have to kill, you cannot damage boost through them. So those cat robots are going to take quite a big FT toll
Tough.
on your. Oh no, Mollyman dies.
Yeah.
I was stuck on the Sabia's screen. They killed the cat quickly. Mollyman died quite a lot. They have what their PB on the category? I think they have a good PB. Solid time sub 25 for sure. Here we go. 23:31, but which means you've not died too much, but you have like 2 minutes to spare.
Yeah, it's Mollyman has been getting into boss fights, getting banged up a little bit on the stages, and just has not had the health to deal with the patterns. It's a very different thing trying to beat one of these robot masters compared to trying to beat them without getting hit at all. The things you need to do become much more difficult. Topman is one that is fairly easy to avoid taking damage. Just count the spins here. 5. No, Sablé is not. He is going with some other Q, I guess, but mistiming these jumps, but is going to get away with it. Has the health to spare. Has defeated Topman. Mollyman is now going to be sort of chasing behind Sablé on stream anyway. It appears to be one stage behind, but is actually neck and neck. At some point, Sablé is going to have to do an extra boss in 4, 5, or 6. I'm guessing it's going to be Gravity and Star, and Mollyman will only have to do one of them. And then, heading into Mega Man 6, they will be very close to each other. Maxrad getting the kill on Quickman, and Molgames has missed the bubble zip, so is showing off these weird little Metroid mines that show up in this section.
It's so weird that you have some enemies in Mega Man 2 that don't show up anywhere else, and if you play the Rockman 2 randomizer, you're going to see them everywhere. It's a very, very cool hack. I think Duck's Fist has developed it, and it's pretty cool. So shout out to Duck's Fist and those Metroid robots here. Sablier is moving as fast as possible through Pharaohman stage. They're not going for the balloon item, so I guess maybe they're going to pick up the E-tank. I'm unclear why. Maybe they just missed the slide jump. You have to do.
I think they did. It is, yeah. You have to slide way out on the very edge of Mega Man's hand before you jump. So. If you jump too early, you're just not going to make the jump, and then of course if you jump too late, you don't jump at all. So it was I think a too late jump from Sablier, which it looks like they just dropped down there intentionally. But it is a little faster to go the other way, and a lot easier actually. There's some troublesome enemies you need to deal with that you can mostly just slide under through the sand if you go for the balloon route. So into the toughest part of the stage now, riding these spike platforms, dealing with these mummies. The charge shot gets you most of the way there, but you need 2 more shots afterwards to kill these guys, and you want to also be dodging their head that they throw out. So if you mash really fast, you can actually kill them before the head comes off, but very likely you're going to have to deal with it, slide under it, do something. Mollyman died in Topman stage, but has run it back and defeated Topman before Sablé could defeat Pharaohman. So in terms of bosses killed, Mollyman is a little bit ahead. Pharaohman stage is, I think, a little longer than Topman stage, so they're actually probably extremely close. It will be fun to see just how close once they get synced up. Pharaohman stage, or fight rather, going very well, just charging the Buster right in his face. Now it's getting a little crazy. He's jumping around. We'll see if he behaves here.
Nice. Staying close like that is going to ensure you that you have the best patterns. Sablier deals very, very well with those jumps and kills the boss before they die themselves. So we'll see. Mollyman actually goes for a rush here to secure the jump. So fast menuing will make it still worth it, but now they have to make it through without killing the enemies, because they probably don't want to go to the menu again, but they still do, and in the end I'm not sure everything was worse, but Sablier is going for the Starman stage. Would you rather go for Gravity or Starman if you were Mollyman? I guess Gravity, since you're not.
I am muted, sorry.
I am muted.
I go with Gravity. I was doing both before, and then cut it down to just one and had to choose. So I was in this situation mostly because of this jump here, actually, that Sablier is about to do. This jump terrifies me. There is a way to damage boost through it, but even that is pretty uncomfortable. Sablier has got through. If you haven't been able to tell so far, Star has low gravity, so it's kind of like being underwater, actually. And Gravity Man stage doesn't have the low gravity, funny enough. It has reversing gravity, so call back to VVV. But yeah, I don't know, gravity just meshed better with me. Sadly, oh, this little walker guy, you can jump right over him, and he looks like you're not going to make the jump, but if you keep going, he steps forwards, and you do end up making that jump. Sadly, got cold feet. And yeah, didn't quite commit. Tried to drop in front of it. Didn't have the health to take the laser. Has now jumped into the spikes on that very difficult jump I was talking about, and is now looking down at a potential game over here.
Farman, you want to stay close and have him do the best patterns. Mollyman kills it and immediately switches to the next, being Mega Man 5. So they're going to be way ahead. Sablia drops back so much because of that death, and Mollyman is going for gravity, as you called. And Sablia is going to start. Yeah, they were exactly at the same time. Apparently, it's hard to tell, but they have to deal with all those Mets. Flying is in space, so obviously they're robots, but they need their helmet to breathe. Everything is so logical in the Mega Man world. A final robot here, you don't want to kill it. Usually you just, oh wow, nice jump, and off to Starman. Once again, I don't know how to deal with that boss. It's one of the weirdest hitbox wise. You can shoot through those stars, but it's fairly precise apparently, and when Starman jumps, is not going to hit you until he triggers the stars, and then their hitbox activates. It's unclear, I'd say.
Yeah, it's weird to get used to all of the little things going on in this fight. It was part of the reason why I opted to do Gravity over Star. Gravity has a much simpler boss fight, though you do have to wrap your head around the crazy switching Gravity. Sablier has defeated Starman, is probably going to be heading to Gravity now, because they still have one more to do. We could see 2 from 6, I guess, but no, is sticking with 5, heading to Gravity. Mollyman dies in Gravity Man stage very late into the stage, actually, so a costly death, but remains half a stage ahead of Sablier now that they've finally synced back up here.
Yeah, so they both have to do Gravity Man and then one extra stage. Oh wow, Sablier kind of forgetting to jump or going for a too aggressive dash jump and taking the spikes to the feet here, immediately exploding. Obviously the spikes will kill you as soon as you touch them in Mega Man. In Mega Man 1 you actually die even if you're in iframe, so thank god they removed that in the next in the games in the series. Mollyman is finally at the boss, did not die, lost a lot of HP, but
the health, he wants it, he can't get it. It's the worst tease. I've been in that exact situation before. Maybe there's a way to do it, but I don't know how. There is no super arrow carrying over from Starman stage. You do have just your Buster. Mollyman not having the greatest start to the Gravity Man fight. This is a set pattern, always doing the same thing, always shooting at the same time. However, his shot moves really fast and it tracks where you are, so if you're doing something different than you normally do, that shot is going to be in a different place and that can throw you off. And so I think Mollyman is just kind of playing kind of scared here, actually, at low health, panicking a little bit, not able to make it happen, but has extra... No, does not have the extra lives! I thought he only died once in Gravity Man stage. This is the worst. This is game over. All the way back to the start. He's freaking out on the menu screen a little bit, and Sablier takes the lead.
It's so weird having no extra lives on Mega Man 5 because they drop like crazy.
Right.
We have some clips of some players having like 3 or 4 drops in a row. Maxrad dies in from Man stage, catching up with Molgamus. I don't know how many bosses they've gone through, but usually Mega Man 4 is about 5th, or Farman is about 5th or 6th in the series. In the list of the boss you want to fight. Gravity Man kinda hitting hard on Sablier here. It's hard to deal with if you're not prepared exactly on where to jump and when to hit, but Sablier deals with Gravity Man. Molly Man dies again with a big health drop on screen.
Oh, look at Max Fred setting up for the jump over. Oh, couldn't quite get it. Just accidentally dipped his toe a little too far. It is easier, I think, to just slide. You have to be a little brave, but your hitbox extends when you slide, and it makes that jump easier, even if you have, you move pretty fast while you're sliding, and you need to get that jump input in. Mulgamus defeating Pharaoh Man, and Mulliman must be a little rattled, because that was a weird place to die in Gravity Man stage, honestly. So I guess is going for some damage boost through a lot of these enemies. Looks partially intentional in some cases, but yeah, that's it's pretty unfortunate. Hopefully, getting hit twice by this thing is, yeah, he's not playing so well. He's capable of a lot better, so I definitely think that the game over has got to him here.
Yeah, and that's too bad, because they're currently in 7th place. They could have caught up a little bit with the top 3. I don't know if they could have entered top 3, but sadly it's going to be just stay in top 10, get your bronze star, and maybe do better in the next time. I don't know. Mega Man is, we said it. I think we have here the 3 trickiest games in the UD list to race. Not maybe to grind, not to play, but just in a race setting. A single death on all of those 3 games for different reasons can throw you off. The cycles are different in VVV. The checkpoints are scarce in out there somewhere, and in Mega Man, it's both. you lose your tempo when you die in Mega Man. You get all your health back, but it's kind of not the same, and the checkpoints are very rare. It's just one at the middle of the level, and that's
Max Fred, hold on, needs one more hit. It doesn't need the full charge, but it's going to do it anyway. I'm pretty sure,
yeah.
Yes, is going to come out the victor over Pharaoh Man. Another death from Molliman. And I absolutely agree. Didn't really think about it, but we might have the 3 hardest games to race here randomly selected in our random tournament. So quite hard on our players. Sablier sliding into Windman with pretty low health, but this is, again, one of the more doable Robot Masters with low health here. So as long as you can keep your cool, make sure to stay far. Oh my goodness, he's getting sucked in, barely jumping away from these projectiles. This fight just got a little more scary, but still very, very doable to not get hit in this fight. Windman, you don't want to see him in the middle of the stage. That makes it a little harder to get the distance you need away from his projectiles. Just giving some crazy back and forth patterns. Sablier couldn't deal with it. Did not die in the stage though, so has the extra life. Is going to come in with full health and is going to be able to clean this up now.
I feel like the tiny jump Windman did when Sablier died, not moving, just jumping on the same place, is the closest thing we've seen to a teabagging in Mega Man in a long time. That was just the silliest taunt I ever seen from a boss. Like, just jumping, like, haha, you cannot get me. Thank God, it's going to go way, way easier and faster for Sablier the second time, not taking a single hit at the start. Dealing with the wind here is pretty annoying, but not too difficult. Windman is a pretty easy boss, and Sablier was just unlucky. Killed Windman cleanly here and finished the category in about 25-40, 25.
Molliman has finished Gravity Man and is moving on to Centaur Man of all things. I don't know if this is out of despair over what happened in Gravity Man stage, or if this is actually part of his route. It's not a horrible stage like the way Crash Man is, but it's definitely a weird one. Centaur Man is going to do. There's water and spikes. So was that a reset? That's just a total reset.
Yeah,
I think,
that's just.
Was this like a miss menu, and then was like, well, I'm in this stage. I guess I'll just play it out. He's going back in.
Going back.
I don't know what's happening.
I think they snapped. I think they just want to have fun in a good old UD fashion. When you're not totally ready with a tournament, you can just go for something new and fun. But Centaur Man has some of the best sprites with those flying copter ducks at the start. I love them. And it's a long and difficult stage. Like all the water stages, they have those spikes that can be quite deadly, and the modified gravity and jumping will throw you off sometimes if you're not super prepared. So I don't know how many times Mollyman will die here, but it's certainly not worth doing if you want to win a tournament. So Mollyman is just having fun practicing on Mega Man 6, and maybe by playing Centaurman you get better at Windman somehow.
Mollyman has taken a lot of hits so far into this really fun water ceiling section, moving back and up and down. It's kind of weird to think about because your jumps are extended quite a bit in water. So just barely touching the spikes there. You do want to wait for the water to come down in order to give yourself some big jumps. If you try to go without the water in some cases, or like you think you have just enough to extend it a little bit, then it's an accident. It was just an accident, he says. He mispressed it. That's all it was.
What? I don't know.
All right.
I don't, Mollyman. If that was really an accident, don't put like a complicated series of input as a reset button. I understand that menuing is part of the category, but having a too accessible, too easy to press reset button is the recipe for disaster. We've seen that on Trackmania very few times actually, but couples still. I don't know now. Maybe Centaurman is actually worth doing, or at least worth considering. I did not go through the level since I've played casually through Mega Man 6. I took it for granted that Windman, Blizzardman, or Flameman were the fastest. But it's very, very interesting to see the player experimenting with all those levels, trying to figure out their strat with Buster only, and you never know.
Right. Sometimes the difference is like 2 seconds or something, and the people who are interested in absolutely getting the fastest times will be like, all right, well, I want that 2 seconds, I'm going to do this. And then someone says, hey, what are the best stages? And someone says it's this stage, and they're like, okay, and they do that stage. But really, there are these stages that are only just a little bit slower and are potentially, much easier. It depends on what things you are comfortable doing in a Mega Man game. Sometimes the way that you go faster in one stage compared to another is because you're doing some really crazy sequence of slides and charges, and it's something that you find you can't even do all that well, so you're not even really saving time on the quote-unquote fastest stage. I think there's probably room for a lot of options like this, like we're seeing from Mollyman. So it is... It's tough because you need to put in time to like thoroughly investigate what it is like to speedrun all 46 stages to have something that you truly feel comfortable with and is your own. But if you do, then you end up with something that works a little bit better for you for this competition. And if nothing else, you have something cool to show off in a race like this that makes you stand out.
Centaurman is not the hardest boss, but it's fairly hard not to get hit. I feel like that's pretty much the theme for all bosses in Mega Man 6, actually. But Centaurman is maybe one of the hardest with Flame Man. It's up there.
I think Centaurman does his flash at certain HP thresholds. It's like 2/3 and then a half and a quarter or something like that. I can't remember, but if you're being smart about when you damage Centaurman, you can skip one of these cycles here. It looks like Mollyman has got pretty much all of them, but only needs one more charge shot or 2 shots to finish. Needs one more.
Wow.
Almost took a final hit there, but is going to clutch it out. A 31:28-ish time for Mollyman. Compared to their PB, this is a very, very, very bad run. Some bad things happened in a couple stages, a couple of resets. Mollyman was in honor of the Big 20 number 9 here with the stage selection choice. We can take a look at the times that have come in now. Indeed, of course, Devil Tiva did end up taking it 4 minutes faster on Mega Man than Soggy Toast, who was the closest competitor. In second, firmly, but behind like 30 points to Devil Tifa. ND Shepard is going to be the person to claim the third place Silver Star by 1 point over Sablier, just barely missing it. And then also Sablier and Little Mai have been close the entire tournament. They remain close. Sablier edges out Little Mai by 2 points.
Sablier misses once again the Silver Star by just a tiny bit. The time they spent on at their summer trying to go for the out of bound. It's hard to say like, oh yeah, that was not worth going for, because if you practiced, obviously you want to go for all the tricks you've practiced. But they're very unlucky with their tournament results, and I know Sablier has still a lot of strength to play around, and they will get there. ND Shepard gets their second Silver Star, and Sogitus get their third. So we start to have a pool of players that are used to being top 3. Devil Tifa get their I don't know, too many.
4th or 5th.
Yeah, 4th.
Yeah.
Gold Star, 5th actually, Gold Star. They have 3 Silver Star, so they're very, very firmly in those top 3 since the beginning. But big congrats to everybody that could race those 3 games in a row like that, because they are very difficult. As we can see in the results, actually, the times for Out There Somewhere speaks for themselves. The players have all lost a lot of time everywhere. But we have a nice checker pattern going with Sablier and Little Mai having a better time on VVV, and Sogitus, ND Shepard, Mollyman, Molgames taking the lead on Out There Somewhere. But obviously, Megaman was a big part of the final result, and Mollyman with 31-25 could not get past the 6th place here.
Yeah, they say in chat here this was a rough one for him. Certainly things went pretty well for Out There Somewhere, but getting lost in VVV right away probably doesn't help with your mindset through the other games. And so the game over in Gravity Man was enough to just tilt the scales off the deep end a little bit. Mollyman was the anchor for Team On the Green in the team tournament. The team captain performed routinely the best, had the most insane lawnmower times of the entire tournament. It was basically like KTH destroying everyone, and then second was Mollyman. So I think they'll come back strong for some future tournaments. Molgames, after, there was a lot of movement on the leaderboard between everyone on stream, but Molgames almost caught up with a fantastic Out There Somewhere, and a pretty good Mega Man. Needs to work on VVV a little bit, and they could have been right there in the running for top 3. And then Max Rad also finishing very close to Molgames, very very close between these 3 players, 6th, 7th, 8th, and also close between 3rd, 4th, 5th. So kind of neat the way that these little these pockets and these battles for certain positions just kind of emerge in these tournaments. But that's is all for today, unfortunately.
Yeah, we actually have only 2 hours to go because the time on Speed Gaming is precious. We have a lot going on the schedule.
We've got Kirby's Dream Land coming up. Maybe it's already started. You can find that on Speed Gaming too. Right after this, actually, there will be Kirby's Dream Land overlapping starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. There's also some Wind Waker randomizer, some Zelda 1 randomizer, A Link to the Past randomizer. We got the daily going, so of course it's going to be there every day. Final Fantasy 1 randomizer. Man, it's a randomized day in particular here, Tuesday on Speed Gaming. If you want to get your randomizer fixed or you want to see some Kirby, then stick around. !schedule in chat will pop up the schedule, and you can go check out when all of these things are going to be on. But we'll be back just tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow we are twisting the categories just a little bit. It's going to be Neo Turf Master, so get your bets ready for the category we are going to play, but it should be pretty easy to guess. On Mega Man, it's going to be way harder to guess, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And on Trackmania 2 as well, there are a lot of content in the game, so you can expect some pretty fun things and interaction. The players should be fairly happy, I think, because playing the same game but in a different way is a good, good mean to relax, not grinding the game and getting up to exhaustion. UD is a long and tough process for a lot of those players. So we'll see. On Saturday we are back with a set list of games. It's going to be, I don't remember. I'm not sure we have announced it yet, but let me find it for you. But we're going to have some Out There Somewhere and some VVV once again, and we're going to have The Messenger into the mix, so in the place of Mega Man 1 through 6 we had today. So The Messenger is a fun game, but it's a tough game as well. Maybe easier to race though than Mega Man, I'd say.
Probably, yeah. There are some deaths that can happen that can cost a lot of time, but I think they're probably a little easier to avoid than Mega Man. So it is a lot of game to learn, though. That is one of the longest games of the category, of the UD rather.
Yeah, for sure. So I will see you tomorrow. Stick around for Kirby. It's going to start in a few minutes. Wow, we went fast actually today. The 3 games the wheel ticket at random were some of the shortest. Next time it's going to be 3 times the Messenger, and we're going to go overtime for an hour. No, just kidding. Don't kick me off the guys. Don't kick me off Speed Gaming quite yet. So stick around. Kirby is a fun game. Have you seen the RNG manipulation?
No, not yet. I've seen the times that it's capable of producing, screenshots and stuff floating around Twitter, but I haven't sat down and looked at what it really yields.
It is something crazy. It mostly means do exactly the same thing all the time, and if anything fails, remember how you've compensated and do as many inputs or stars or swallows as necessary to get back on the RNG. It's completely crazy, and being able to do that during races is almost out of the question for the UD runners, I'd say, but those guys have surprised us in the past, so we'll see what they are capable of. But have a good evening, or have a good day if it's only 5 p.m. in the America. Or East Coast. It's so big. Why is it so big in America? Like, come back in France. It's only 1 hour. The only one time zone we have, and it doesn't even shift at the same time as you. The time makes me so sad. Have a good time on Speed Gaming.
Have a good.
Have a good. Yeah, be good and have fun. See ya.